Hi, I am Ajit Virkud, Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology from Mumbai.
Hello, citizens of the internet. In part 2 of this e-lecture, I'm going to discuss the clinical features, diagnosis, and treatment of endometrial carcinoma. As far as the clinical features go, abnormal uterine bleeding is the commonest symptom. Endometrial carcinoma must be ruled out in every patient complaining of postmenopausal bleeding because in such patients there is a 20% chance that she may have endometrial carcinoma. The other symptoms are purulent, often bloody vaginal discharge and lower abdominal pain, which are symptoms of pyometra. Hydorrhea, which is mucoid discharge from endometrial glands. Pain is an uncommon symptom, which may be due to pyometra, peritoneal involvement, cervical involvement, periodic uterine contractions, which is an attempt by the uterus to expel the growth, and this is known as Simpson's pain. Rarely, there may be history of passing polypoidal growths. Late symptoms of endometrial carcinoma are lump in abdomen, rectal or urinary complaints, cachexia, and weight loss. It must be noted that in most series, there were very few asymptomatic patients. On bimanual examination, size of the uterus is no criteria. Uterus may be atrophic, normal size, soft and uniformly enlarged, or nodular and irregularly enlarged. Uterus is mobile unless the parametrium, bladder, or rectum are involved, when it has a restricted mobility. On perspeculum examination, parauretral or vaginal nodules may be seen or felt. Senile vaginitis may be seen. Bleeding or spotting which follows passage of a uterine sound into the uterine cavity is called as the Clark's sign. It may be positive in some cases of endometrial carcinoma. Although adequate for screening for cervical intraepithelial neoplasia and cervical carcinoma, Pap smear has an unacceptably high false negative rate for detecting endometrial cancer. Thus, obtaining a sample of the endometrium is the first step for confirming the diagnosis. This can be done by endometrial aspiration cytology. Various cannulae that can be used for this are Pipelle, Vabra aspirator, Isaac cannula, etc. Office endometrial biopsy usually gives adequate tissue sample in 65 to 95% of cases. Fractional curettage, however, is the gold standard method for confirming the diagnosis. Two fractions are sent. One, endocervical curettage, obtained before dilatation of the cervix, and the other, curettage of the entire endometrial sample, including the cornual ends. Hysteroscopy may reveal a thickened or polypoidal endometrium which has a dimply appearance with irregular polylobed growing edges. Biopsy must be taken from the suspicious areas. On transvaginal sonography, markedly thickened endometrium greater than 5 mm in a symptomatic patient warrants further diagnostic investigations. Heterogeneous, cystic, and vascular hyperechoic tissue filling the entire endometrial cavity is highly suspicious. CT, MRI, or PET scan using contrast should be done in advanced cases to rule out spread to myometrium and pelvic or paraaortic lymph nodes. Primary surgery is the mainstay of initial treatment and basis for FIGO staging. It involves complete examination of the abdomen, conventional extrafacial total hysterectomy with removal of a cuff of vagina and bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy, peritoneal cytology, pelvic lymphadenectomy. If facilities are available, laparoscopic radical hysterectomy is preferred. During laparoscopic hysterectomy, manipulation of the tumor, including macroscopically involved lymph nodes, should be avoided to prevent the rare occurrence of port site metastasis. The issue of who should perform the surgery, that is, a general gynecologist or gynecological oncologist, has not been settled. Facility of experienced pathologist and frozen section must be available at the time of surgery. It is currently a common practice to ask the pathologist to open the uterus at the time of surgery, make several cuts through the tumor to estimate the depth of invasion, and make a frozen section to know the grade of the tumor, thus providing the surgeon with information both regarding the grade of the disease and the extent of invasion on which to make an informed decision as for the need for pelvic lymphadenectomy. Now a clinical pearl. After omission of positive cytology from the 2009 FIGO staging of endometrial carcinoma, the need for and the significance of positive peritoneal cytology result has become controversial. During surgery, the following precautions should be taken to prevent spillage of cancer cells during removal of the specimen. Cervix must be closed with figure-of-8 sutures to prevent spill in the vagina. Make a circular incision around the cervix from below and tie the reflected mucosal flaps after putting a gauze piece over the os. Stitch the femoral ends or clamp the cornal ends to prevent spill from the femoral end. Do not hold the body of the uterus with the valsalum. While removing a cuff of vagina, put clamps from either side to prevent vaginal spillage. Vaginal hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy is indicated in patients with comorbid factors like obesity or those with associated pelvic organ prolapse. It is done in clinical stage 1 well-differentiated adenocarcinomas because pelvic lymph node dissection is not possible. Generally, these patients will have to be supplemented with post-operative radiotherapy because appropriate surgical staging is not done. The current practice is to reserve nodal dissection for patients with high risk of nodal disease. Factors that warrant pelvic and para-aortic lymph node dissection are suspicious aortic or common iliac nodes, grossly positive adnexa, grossly positive pelvic lymph nodes, invasion of outer half of myometrium, papillary serous, clear cell or carcinosarcoma on frozen section, and grade 2 or grade 3 adenocarcinomas. Another clinical pearl. Selective lymph node dissection based on palpation is inaccurate as only 10% of patients with metastasis to pelvic lymph nodes will have grossly enlarged nodes. In young premenopausal patients with endometrial carcinoma confined to the uterus, that is non-myoinvasive stage 1A carcinoma, who desire future childbearing, fertility may be partially preserved by omitting bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy. They can use ART techniques later to beget a biological child. After radical surgery, the management depends upon the estimated risk of recurrent disease, which is based on the surgical stage, tumor grade, and histological subtype. For low-risk patients, no further treatment is required, whereas high-risk patients require post-operative pelvic irradiation. Low-risk patients are FIGO stage 1A endometrial carcinoma, histological grade 1 or 2, and high-risk patients are FIGO stage 1B or higher, histological grade 3, clear cell serous endometrial carcinoma, and lymphovascular space invasion. There is a considerable debate regarding the need for pelvic and para-aortic lymphadenectomy, its extent, and whether it incurs any therapeutic benefit. Primary radiation therapy is indicated in advanced stage 3 and 4 cases and in medically unresectable endometrial cancer. The treatment techniques vary, but intracavity radiation is the mainstay of treatment, with some series advocating the addition of external beam radiation therapy for some or most of the patients. Indications for external beam radiotherapy are narrow vagina, cervical stenosis, and atrophic uterus. External beam radiotherapy is produced by cobalt machines, linear accelerators, or with charged particle cyclotrons. Whole pelvic irradiation is administered through 4 pelvic portals, 4-field technique, where the beams are angled so that the body of the uterus is at the center of the crossfire. Intensity modulated radiation therapy is a radiation technique which is currently being investigated for treatment of endometrial cancer. This technique allows for decreased radiation doses to critical structures such as the bladder, rectum, or bone marrow, while continuing treating the tumor at the same dose. It is used for post-operative treatment of endometrial cancer. Only chemotherapy has no role in the management of carcinoma endometrium. The therapy for disseminated or recurrent carcinoma of endometrium with cytotoxic chemotherapy is currently disappointing. The value of adjuvant systemic chemotherapy in patients with high-risk early-stage endometrial cancer is still controversial. If used, it should be combination therapy, that is, radiation with chemotherapy, which is known as chemoradiotherapy. Chemotherapy using carboplatin and paclitaxel or cisplatin and doxorubicin can improve disease control and symptoms in patients with recurrent disease, but the impact on survival is limited. Positive progesterone receptor and estrogen receptor status correlates well with high clinical response to progestational therapy. Progestogens are given initially in high loading doses in the first few weeks, followed by low maintenance dose. Maintenance therapy should be given for at least 8 weeks before a decision is reached. If a remission is obtained, it should be continued indefinitely. Hormonal treatment has virtually no toxicity. In a few selected patients in whom hysterectomy is contraindicated because of several medical problems like coronary heart disease, heart failure, or pulmonary insufficiency, and who have a well-differentiated tumor with grade 1 histology and absence of myometrial involvement, the use of intracavitary progestogen in lieu of brachytherapy is worthwhile. Now I will talk about a special situation. Question: what to do in a case of incidental finding of endometrial carcinoma in a hysterectomy specimen? Answer: it depends. If the tumor is grade 1 or 2 with minimal or no myoinvasion and no lymphovascular space invasion, then no further therapy is generally needed. If the tumor has high risk factors such as grade 3 morphology, deep myoinvasion, lymphovascular space invasion, or histologically unfavorable type such as serous or clear cell, then additional surgery is indicated to remove the adnexa and complete the surgical staging. Post-operative radiotherapy may or may not be required. Prognostic factors for endometrial carcinoma are: age of the patient, older the patient, poorer the prognosis. FIGO stage: as the stage progresses, prognosis worsens. Myometrial invasion also worsens prognosis. Grade of the tumor: grade 2 and grade 3 have a worse prognosis. And lymph node metastasis, which also has a worse prognosis. Like invasive carcinoma of cervix, carcinoma of endometrium also has a pre-invasive stage called as endometrial intraepithelial neoplasia. However, it is not very well established, difficult to diagnose, and not universally followed. Unlike in the case of carcinoma of cervix, routine screening for endometrial carcinoma or its precursor in asymptomatic postmenopausal women is presently not recommended because of the low incidence of endometrial carcinoma in this group of women. It is neither cost effective nor warranted. However, estrogen receptor positive cancers can develop secondary to atypical endometrial hyperplasia. Screening is required only for women at high risk for endometrial carcinoma, such as women with history of Lynch 2 syndrome, Cowden syndrome, and those on tamoxifen therapy. Different screening methods are vaginal cytology, which is not very accurate because malignant endometrial cells appear on pap smear only in 25 to 50% of women with endometrial cancer. Endometrial cytology, transvaginal ultrasonography, magnetic resonance imaging, hysteroscopy, and DNC. Histological sampling is the best means to diagnose either asymptomatic or symptomatic endometrial neoplasia. Accuracy of endometrial histological methods for diagnosing neoplasia is 95 to 98%. Needless to say, the ideal method for endometrial surveillance is yet to be devised. In the end, I will summarize the stage-wise prognosis for endometrial carcinoma. Stage 1, it is 80%. Stage 2, it is 60 to 70%. Whereas for stage 3, it falls to 30 to 40%. And for stage 4, it is 0 to 5%. This is the end of part 2 of my e-lecture on endometrial carcinoma. For further reading on this topic and other topics in obstetrics and gynecology, refer to following books written by me. Practical Obstetrics and Gynecology, Modern Obstetrics, Modern Gynecology, Clinical Cases in Obstetrics, Questions and Answers, Clinical Cases in Gynecology, Questions and Answers, and Pelvic Reconstructive Surgery. If you have found this video useful and informative, please subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking here.